Hello! Vic Mornington, this Island SL. Been a while since I've done a video in this channel actually. I need to start doing more videos. So I just got my hands on a new 3D Connections Space Navigator mouse in order to do better videos for Second Life. That's one of the reasons I haven't been doing that many videos, because doing the old Control Alt Cam click camming method gets a little bit obnoxious after a while. So the 3D Connections Space Navigator mouse has made camming around a little bit easier now. Anyway, I thought for the first try with this Space Navigator mouse, what I would do is a video which basically showcases New Babbage. Now on this channel, before this video actually, there was a series of videos called Dawn and Dusk, and the idea behind the Dawn and Dusk videos was to basically do a miniature 3 or 4 minute long showcase video about the builds of New Babbage, what you would actually see if you visited New Babbage as a city. But there's a lot of misconceptions about the city of New Babbage that could possibly put off some people from visiting. We're gonna touch on those misconceptions later on in this video, probably for the last 5 minutes or so. But what I'm going to do now for the first 10 minutes or so of this video is give people just a general tour around the 12 regions that makes up the city-state of New Babbage. Right now I am standing in the newest region of the city called Blackberry Fields, and I am standing on one of, in fact not one of, my only steampunk airship. It's actually currently docked in I love this Space Navigator mouse. Love this thing. But it's currently docked next to the train tunnel that heads into the RP fictitious cities of Ravilla and Bump. But the two northern regions of New Babbage, if you bring up the world map, you will see two regions to the very north called the Fells and Blackberry Fields. Right now we're in Blackberry Fields and there is literally nothing on the ground apart from some rocks, and in the case of the Fells, the train track leading into the tunnel, a windmill and a small encampment. The two northern regions that comprise the grasslands of the steampunk city of New Babbage is just that. They are literally grasslands. The Fells is there for a specific reason, however. About 3,000 metres up there is a build platform, and residents of the city, in other words people who own land in the city, get use of that private sandbox. Blackberry Fields, which is where I'm standing right now, is my own region. I actually own this region, but it's been attached to the northern grasslands of New Babbage in case, as in the event of the great exhibition that took place here in March, the city needs an empty region to host a big event on, and that's what Blackberry Fields is sitting there for. So the two northern regions, the Fells, which is over there, and Blackberry Fields, which is over here, is basically grasslands. Where we're going to move on to next is what a lot of people, including myself, basically call the suburb, the northern end of the city proper. So here we are in Academy of Industry. Now, Academy of Industry was one of, in fact it was the newest of the city proper regions until Quarry opened up just recently. But Academy of Industry is, if we open up the world map here, I'm on the standard viewer so I don't know where the hell all the buttons are, there they are. If we look at the world map here, Academy of Industry along with Babbage Palisades and Quarry Hill make up what is basically the northern suburbs, the north end of the city. The gentrified areas of New Babbage basically. Oops, and this is why I hate using the normal viewer, because you click on the ground and you go walking off into the distance. I'm not using Firestorm for this, folks, because Firestorm's acting a little bit laggy lately. So what I need to do is, oh no, not that, Vic. I need to click that button and then do that, and now we've got the flycam active. Now, this big empty area I'm standing on here is one of the old sandboxes, which, to be honest, is never really used that much now. This is called Babbage Square. It sits right in front of the main academy building, which is this large imposing structure right next to Babbage Square, where I'm standing. And Babbage Square was there as well as the Fells sandbox, as a miniature sandbox for residents of the city-state of New Babbage, for the landowners. But to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of people using this since the Fells sandbox opened up. Of course, as is the case with practically all of the regions, there is a lot of residential areas opened up. There's my little, what's the name for it? I know it's a cemetery, but there's another name for it. The reason I actually got this. Prim Farm, that's it. There's my little Prim Farm cemetery there. This is Rutherford Square, which is all residential. There is Builder Square. There is Sovereign House, which is currently Leah Venuto, my cousin's, real life cousin, my cousin's home. It used to be my home. You've got Mornington Brewery. If we bring the cam in a little bit closer, we've got Mornington Brewery here, which again is basically another Prim Farm. Come on, are you going to res in? Res in. This is why I hate using the standard viewer. There we go. But we've got Mornington Brewery, which is a Prim Farm. That I'm going to show you the reason there's so many Prim Farms that I've got. Then you've got this, which is a collection of shops and miniature parks that are set up. You've got little scamp designs there, Zyda. And then you've got more residential areas here. Now, the reason I've got so many Prim Farms is because of the big building I'm about to pan round to, which is this. This is Brunel Hall Hotel, and it is the founding listing for the romance category in the Second Life Destination Guide. I've been running this place for more than 10 years now. It's a 17-room hotel with a swimming pool, a sauna, a basement bar, and the main you know what? I've got this 3D connection fly cam thingy bob. Let's just fly in, give you a quick tour of the place. But Brunel Hall Hotel is it's one of the first visit places that people generally find New Babbage from, because this place has been listed in the Destination. Oh, well, you know, there's another reason I don't use the Second Life viewer, because nothing fucking loads. Look at all this lovely grey. It'll load in eventually. But this is one of the first places that new people in New Babbage generally end up going to, because the listing is so high in the destination guide. This is the main restaurant, and trust me, it looks more colourful than this. It's just I'm using the Second Life Linden Lab viewer and nothing loads. Underneath the floor, we've got Goodbye Machine Durkin, which is the main bar where I hold events in. This is why I've got so many Prim Farms, because above all of this, if we line up with the elevators, we've got the upper floors. This is one of the floors, and this is the second floor, and then we've got the roof right above that, and this is a 17-room working hotel, which means you can walk in, rent a room, and it's all ready for you. You know, there's already furniture there. If you want to pop your own furniture in, just give me a shout and I'll clear out the furniture so you can put your own stuff in. Nothing is loading. All these lovely missing textures. Ah, Linden Lab with the official viewer. It sucks. But yeah, that is Academy of Industry, one of the two suburban regions of the city. Talking about the other two, they're over there, and let's head to them right now. So as you walk past the rather large edifice of Brunel Hall, which is of course an academy, this is a big building, right? This is a very big building. As you walk past Brunel Hall, you end up crossing the region into Babbage Palisade. Now Palisade, I think I'm right in guessing Palisade was basically the original suburban region of New Babbage as it was first being formed. Oh, by the way, I figured we'd catch one of these. This little fella, if we zoom in, there we go, is one of the trams. These things are a great way to explore the city, by the way. Ding ding to yourself as well. These trams generally all tend to stop. Not all of them, but most of them. They generally all tend to stop over here, which again is in the Babbage Palisade region. This build here is somebody's got a very loud waterfall here. Hold on. I'm going to mute that there so you don't hear that. But this area here, nope, I don't want to select it. This here is Central Station. And basically most of the city trams end up terminating in Central Station. It is a fantastic way to explore the older regions of the city. Now again, not all of the trams end in Central, but practically most of them do, especially in the older central lines of New Babbage. But This is Palisade. There is a mixture of shops and residences here, which is the case for practically all of the New Babbage, which is a case for practically all of the New Babbage regions. But looking at it from a top-down standpoint, you can see there is a very wide thoroughfare road. Very wide thoroughfare road going right down the middle, much like Academy. You've got mainly shops to one side, mainly shops with the Aether Salon as well, and you've got residences on the opposite side with Central Station crammed in at the top. And that theme, I think we can get away with carrying the camera over the sim boundary. I don't think it will get too laggy. That theme carries on past Central Station, which we're now passing now, and then on to the newest of the city regions, which is here. And this area is called Quarry Hill, currently under reconstruction by Mossavino Tank, who is of course the owner and the mayor of the entire city. But you can see a lot of building works going on there, some scaffolding going on. But Quarry Hill is the newest of the main central regions. There's a massive lake slap in the middle of it with a dam on the other side. You've got the beginning of the Palisade wall here, which runs all the way along the north side to differentiate between the northern grasslands and of course the actual city proper. Down here, if we head in, well, not into the lake, but if we head onto the surface of the lake, this is another one of the regular event places. This is the conservatory, and the conservatory holds monthly formal balls, and surrounding the lake is a whole bunch of residential buildings going all the way to the plaza, which you're seeing here. And the quarry is the newest area. That's the newest of the city proper regions. So that's the suburbs. So you've got Quarry Hill here, and you know what, we're going to carry on and fly over the main Palisade wall. There we go. You've got Quarry Hill there. We are now crossing the train tracks into Babbage Palisade. And we're now going into sight of Brunel Hall, and there's the roof of Brunel Hall there. Past Brunel Hall, we're now in Academy of Industry. I'll never be able to do this fly cam, by the way, in the central core regions, because it's very, very dense building going on in the core regions. And now we're in Academy of Industry, past the main Academy building, and then I should be standing like an idiot. Oh, wait a minute, no I'm not, I'm actually standing in Palisade. Yeah, because I teleported myself over. But yeah, we begin where we started on Babbage Square. Now we move in to the older, more densely packed in areas, the central core of the city. So I decided for the core regions, the actual city proper, that I'm going to switch the daylight settings to the actual environmental settings for the city, so you can get a feel of what things are going to look like when you teleport into the city proper. Tucked away to the very eastern side of the city proper, you've got this, which is Clockhaven, and as you cross the city boundary from Port Babbage into Clockhaven, you'll be met with this place where they water down the beer. Did I just say that out loud? Oops. This is this is the gangplank. You're going to be noticing a lot of textures not loading, by the way. I hate using the standard SL viewer because stuff takes so long to load, but the problem is doing a lot of fly camming with Firestorm starts to freak out and crash on you. So I went, you know what, I'm going to have to use the standard viewer for this, which is why I hate using the standard viewer. But this is the gangplank. It is, I don't think it's the oldest pub. I think that's still Ruby's. But it's one of the longest running pubs with a very, very long history in the city. And as you can see, it's a very maritime themed build that you're looking at here. Yeah, it's a very maritime themed build. But as we follow the train tracks along, we go past several buildings, including the old Militia HQ, which is in here. Don't have a clue what that building's used for now, but that used to be the Militia HQ. I don't think it is anymore. We go up the steps, and we go through the tunnel, and we go into one of the areas which is actually currently under a lot. Wow, that's a lot of heavy industry noise. Where's that coming from? It's coming from down there somewhere. But yeah, this is Clockhaven's Market Square, which is looking decidedly empty right now. If we pull the camera out, and we go up and backwards, you will notice that there's a lot of stuff missing from it right now. Mosavino Tink, who is the owner and mayor of the city of New Babbage, is in the middle of reconstructing Clockhaven that we're looking at right now, and Quarry. Clockhaven was in, and still is to some extent, is in desperate need of an overhaul, because Clockhaven was built and put together at a time when Prim building was it. Sculpties were just starting to come in. There was no such thing as mesh back then, and a lot of the municipal buildings that were put down were done in Prims, and Mr. Tank is slowly over. In fact, one of the new buildings is over here somewhere. There it is, there actually, yeah. Mr. Tank is slowly overhauling all the old municipal buildings with mesh-based buildings. You can also see the Palisade wall, which ends in the sea, and Clockhaven also has a set of docks which is not loaded in, because I'm using the crappy standard viewer. Hold on. Okay, they're just not going to load by the looks of it, but we do have a couple of older docks round here. There we go, and that is basically Clockhaven. You also have another event building. If we back up the cam here and then turn round, this is the old theatre owned by D. Wells, who also owns that rather large airship you're seeing over there. Those two areas are actually used for events within the city, like parties and stuff. And at the very back, giving a special mention to a build that's been part of Clockhaven since Clockhaven actually popped down. This is the old Aether power station, ran and operated by the one and only Avariel Falcon, a very well-known black unicorn who dances a lot at RFL events. This is her little place in New Babbage. So that was an up close of the old Clockhaven area. Now we're going to spin the cam round and have a look at its neighbouring area, all shrouded in darkness, Port Babbage. So Port Babbage, I've just made up a new sim name. Port Babbage, as the name suggests, is basically the main port region for the city-state of New Babbage. Clockhaven that we just left also has docks, but Port Babbage, as you will soon see, was built around the concept of having the whole actual area based around working docks and ports that you're seeing down there. Now that sea continues on, and you can see in the distance there the Vernian Sea Lighthouse. That sea continues on into the Vernian Sea, but Port Babbage used to be basically the main commercial hub of the entire city. It used to be, but as more and more shops decided to open up in other regions of the city, Port Babbage, that less of an emphasis started to be put on Port Babbage as the main commercial hub for people to open up shops and stuff. There is still, however, a lot of shops open in the Port Babbage region. In fact, this building right here, this one right here, is actually a small market that businesses can rent small stalls in, but along the seafront there is still a number of rather large shops here. And if we spin the camera around the opposite side to the other seafront, you have got Loner Lane, which again, like Brunel Hall, offers apartments up for rent. And then in the centre of the region here, you do of course have all of the docks with the ships all docked as well, and that basically covers most of Port Babbage. One building that we're going to be visiting later on, though, at the very end of this video, is one of the newest additions to Port Babbage, which is this building here, the New Babbage Department of Tourism and Trade. But more about that later on. Where we're going to head next is the original core region, Babbage Square. So, heading through Port, what we end up in is we end up in one of, in fact, the original core region of the city, which is, of course, Babbage Square, a continuation of Port, which we've just left over there. As you walk through Babbage Square, you notice that the road is still a very wide thoroughfare road very wide thoroughfare road. Up these stairs we end up going into the back of Loner Lane, and then we end up in Kamika Young's Steampunk Park, as you can see there. This large building here is the edifice of the New Babbage Town Hall, and Mossavino Tenk, the city mayor, actually holds, straight through the trees back there we go, actually holds seasonal meetings inside City Hall to plan out events and stuff. Also, if you head through the doors of City Hall as well, through the doors into the main plaza in the middle, and then you turn left, you're presented with this little map. And this little map has little dots on it. The green dots signify land that is currently up for sale and rent, and the blue dots, or the blue triangles, represent rental areas like Brunel Hall, for instance, and Loner Lane, where you can actually rent an apartment. And that's where you go if you're interested in getting land in the city. And none of these textures are wanting to load inside City Hall. Across from City Hall, you have got a range of buildings by Jimmy Branagh. And these buildings house the Waxworks, and this building here, which is like a history museum kind of building. To the very far side of Babbage Square, you've got a couple of larger buildings here, which is a mix of stately manors and interesting places to pop in and roleplay. And that is basically Babbage Square. There's a lot of big set piece buildings in Babbage Square for people to pop in and have a wander around. A lot of large set piece buildings here. The last of the central core regions is over here at the far side, and that's where we're heading to next. So, going past Babbage Square, past the tram tracks, we end up in New Babbage. No, I know that's the name of the city, but that's also the name of the region. It's colloquially termed Babbage number 7, signifying that this is the 7th region to be laid down in the city-state of New Babbage. And the first half of the New Babbage region is basically a continuation of that very wide thoroughfare that we walk through for port, and of course for Babbage Square directly behind it. But the New Babbage region is also the halfway point between a very distinct shift in the build style. So we're going through a distinct thoroughfare, then we hit this kind of crossroads section here, and then we end up in a much more grittier area of the New Babbage sim. This is called the Gut, and it's basically a mixture of tenement, like pre-built tenement buildings that people can move into if they want to live there, or people can rent shops. And at the very far side of the Gut, as we go past the Bucket of Blood pub, we end up over here in an even darker area, especially during Halloween. This is the Lemony Snicket house sitting up here, and then you've got some very old and dejected buildings sitting up here at the back. There's a very definite shift in theme from the much more, I suppose you could call it, classical Victorian layout of Babbage Square into a slightly more industrial setting, which is what the New Babbage region represents. Because if we head down to the ground again, and then over here, which is the bridge that joins the northern sections of the city, or sorry, not the northern, the central sections of the city to the southern sections of the city, and where the canals are, you can definitely see a shift in the build style going on. There's a lot more chimneys belching out a lot more smoke, and we're basically hitting the lower south side of the city, which is mainly the industrial parts. So as we cross that bridge, we end up in Wheatstone Waterways, and the first thing you'll see when you cross the bridge is this very, very large transmission tower. That's the transmission tower for Radio Riel, Gabrielle Riel, that runs Radio Riel. Edward Pierce also owns the Clarendon, which is right next door. This is one of the buildings, if you just go straight through the wall, this is one of the buildings that is basically used for regular events in the city. However, Wheatstone Waterways, which is on the southern end, it's the first of the southern end regions, has got a mix of different build styles. Wheatstone and all the other central core regions at the very beginning used to be very heavy on industry. You can see a lot of the remnants of the heavier industry side of Wheatstone Waterways from the amount of just chimney stacks that are dotted around, including the massive chimney stack here for this build, which is of course the Hawksley Pump House. In fact, this is actually one of my buildings, the Hawksley Pump House. If we head into the doors of Hawksley, what you will see is a couple of rather large beam-based steam engines that are busy pumping water for use of the general populace of the city-state of New Babbage. And it's not a tax write-off or tax haven either. No, it's not. But if we pull the camera up and we have a bigger overview of what's happening here in Wheatstone, you can see many remnants of the older industrial themes that were going on here in Wheatstone Waterways. One of the problems that hit New Babbage is a lot of the old builds for New Babbage was prim-based. They were prim-based. And the good thing about prim-based building is anyone can do it. Anyone. You just need to sit there for a couple of hours and basically learn. But when mesh started popping in, it's a lot harder for someone to learn how to use Blender, because Blender's a bloody nightmare. And a lot of the industrial, the old prim industrial buildings, like this building down here, a lot of the old industrial buildings slowly started to become lost as residents moved out of New Babbage, new residents moved in, and they didn't want to build in prims because prim builds looked horrible up against the mesh builds, and there was no industrial, at least at the time, there was no decent steampunk-based mesh buildings on the marketplace. So we started seeing a lot of residential builds pop up in Wheatstone along with the rest of the southern regions. But if you look around, there is still remnants, like this one here, there is still remnants of the old industrial side of the city. And this is Wheatstone Waterways, which is the last region to be part of the main canal network that we're seeing here. But the star of the show when it comes to Wheatstone has always been Piermont Landing. This is Piermont Landing here, and it is the major destination for large set piece, basically themed events. Now, Breezy Carver, who runs Piermont Landing, there's the dance deck here, and it's a massive building. It's a huge building built by Dr. Obolensky a very long time ago. But Breezy Carver hopefully will start to plan more events for Piermont Landing in the future. But that is one of the star event places, and it's tucked away in the very corner of Wheatstone Waterways. You've also got a few other role-playing places buried here in Wheatstone, as you can see. But that is Wheatstone. We're going to carry on with the journey through the southern Sims. Yes. So going past the hospital in Wheatstone Waterways, we end up in the next sim over, which also continues the canal theme. And this region is, surprisingly enough, called Babbage Canals. Again, one of the older core industrial regions. You can still see quite a number of smokestacks and old industrial builds, like that one over there owned by Beck Janice. Old industrial builds of the past builds of New Babbage. But once again, we are losing some of the old industrial builds, and they're slowly being replaced by more general kind of residential style steampunk buildings. But Canals is the heart of the main canal network here in New Babbage. We've got a monorail which is in the process, from what I remember, I think it's in the process of having an actual monorail tram actually included, because this region, along with a couple of others, is not connected to the Babbage tram network, which means if you hop on a tram and you rely on the trams to basically explore the city, you will not end up in Canals, because Canals, and I think it's Canals and a couple of other regions, is not hooked up to the tram network. But the monorail system will be hooking up the tram network, or the end of the tram network, into this region for people to explore around. There is signs of the industrial past here in Canals. You've got this building here, and you've got a couple of other builds in the far corner that are basically throwing out smoke. But Canals, like Wheatstone, like New Babbage as well, over the past 5 years or so. Again, because of the decline of prim building, has been losing quite a lot of the old industrial builds. But there is quite a few of these industrial builds left, like this one here, right on the dockway, and of course at the corner. And this little place is often forgotten about. There is book discussions. There's a book discussion group here in New Babbage. And this little building here in the corner is the R.F. Burton Library, where members of the book discussion group here in New Babbage meet. I think it's every 2 weeks. Is it every 2 weeks? I think they meet every 2 weeks to discuss a book that they've all decided to read over the past 2 weeks. So that's the R.F. Burton Library. That's actually quite a new build as well. That build replaced a very old prim build not too long ago. This, remember how I mentioned the Gangplank is one of the oldest pubs? I think I'm right in saying this very old build here is called Ruby's, and it's owned by Scoosting Dagger. And I think I'm right in saying that this is the oldest pub in the city of New Babbage. It's been around for about as long as the city of New Babbage has actually been a thing, and it's one of the few remaining original prim builds actually left in the southern end of the city. You've also got the Merriman pub up here at the corner, and you've got a whole bunch of little steampunk based theme parks right in the middle. And we've got one more of the old southern regions to look at, and that's up next. So we're here in a region which is generally overlooked when people are exploring. This is Lappock Rock Lighthouse. It's another one of my builds, and it's also in the destination guide. This is actually my home. This is where I live here in New Babbage. But the reason that a lot of people kind of overlook Vernian Sea is they think, well, it's just a lighthouse. However, there's a trick to Vernian Sea. If we spin the camera around and we head over to the region that's to the north of Vernian, which is Port Babbage, which we've already had a look at the very end of one of these docks, if the dock actually loads, seriously, the vanilla Second Life viewer, come on, you're going to load the dock. It should be right there. There we go, thank you. Bloody hell, it took long enough. If you head down this central dock, you will see a lift, and that lift takes you down below into the Vernian Sea tubes. And if we follow this tube all the way down, if we follow that tube all the way down, the lift ends here and we end up in the undersea tunnels. And this is how you get to access some of the buildings that's currently under the Vernian Sea. Some of the buildings, a lot of the I think it's a lot of the buildings, coming to think of it. But you've got some private residences here. You've got Beck Janice's lab over at the far end there, all hooked up to the Vernian Sea tubes. And the final build underwater in the Vernian Sea is the Lotus of the Sea, which is an old ballroom underneath the water. Shades of Bioshock going on here. Definite shades of Bioshock going on. And of course none of the textures have loaded because I'm using the crappy Second Life viewer. Above the water, however, the only build that you will see above the water is, of course, the Lappock Rock Lighthouse. It's the only sign of anything happening in this region above the water. There's also direct access to the Vernian Sea tubes at the very base of the lighthouse, because here is a lift. And if you don't see the lift in place, if all you're seeing here is a big gaping hole going into the water, if you hit that button there, it will call the lift, and you'll end up going down, all the way down that tube, and eventually that tube joins up to the far side of the Vernian Sea underwater tubes there. So remember, if you are walking around in Port Babbage, don't forget to head into the lift, because you're missing quite a lot of stuff under the sea in Vernian. Anyway, let's head back to Port Babbage. I was going for the big sweeping movement, but yeah, I'm way too heavy-handed on this 3D connection mouse. And here we are. we are in the New Babbage Department of Tourism and Trade, and down in the description of this video is going to be the SL URL for this building. This building holds all the information that you need to get to know about the City-State of New Babbage, including an answer to some of the more generally wondered questions about this, which may actually end up putting some people off. Now, New Babbage is not, would you settle down with the camera? There we go. New Babbage is not roleplay enforced, which means you do not have to teleport into a forced landing building and accept 32 billion different roleplay rules and then join a guild and join a group and get to know all the moderators and rules and stuff. New Babbage is roleplay light, which means if you want to roleplay, you're more than welcome to. But it's not enforced roleplay, which means you can visit this place in modern day clothing. You can. Nobody's going to stop you. All that we do ask is, if you see a group of New Babbage residents role-playing away inside a pub, hang around and listen, but try not to get involved until you know what's actually going on. Because New Babbage has been on the grid for more than a decade, there is a lot of backstory going on within the city itself. All I can suggest is people go and visit the New Babbage website and the New Babbage Facebook group to get more information, not only about the backstory of the city, but more information about roleplay itself. So that's the first misconception about New Babbage. It's not roleplay enforced. You can pop in here wearing modern day clothing. You don't have to wear OOC tags. All that we ask is, if you do see a group of people role-playing, hang around and listen, but try not to get involved until you know what's happening. The second misconception, all of New Babbage is built by one person, namely Mossavino Tank, and it's a planned city. It's not. It's not. All of the builds, well, not all, about 90% of the builds that you've seen with the quick introduction of each of the regions of New Babbage was actually built by the landowner. New Babbage is not like in Silico or other planned communities like Foxwoods or Foxhaven, for instance, where it's one owner that owns all the buildings and individuals rent that land and rent the building that they move into. Here, you provide your own building. You can either build it yourself or buy it off of the marketplace. What you're basically renting here is an empty plot of land if you decide to go down the road of buying an empty plot of land. With that, however, does come some rules. Number one, the build has to be passed by Mr. Tank, who's the city owner. That's why all 12 of these regions, there is a theme going on of Victorian and steampunk. If the build that you plan to put down does not fit in the theme, Mr. Tank will ask you to try another build. Or you can simply rent in Brunel Hall Hotel, Loner Lane, or several other of the pre-built, move-in ready rental builds that Mr. Tank's got on. But about 90% of this city, the residents themselves made the building or bought the building. So that's another misconception finally answered in this video. There is a lot of stuff that I could cover in this video. But two of the major misconceptions, that New Babbage is roleplay enforced, and the other major misconception that all of these buildings are owned by Tank and you have to live in those buildings. No, not true. You'll see it if you pop in to City Hall and pick up the land note card. All of the rules about owning land in the city is all there for everyone to see. There is a growing selection of pretty half-decent Victorian and Victorian-esque borderline steampunk pre-built buildings that you can find on the marketplace. There's a growing number of them. When Mesh first hit the grid, there wasn't that many builders that were concentrating on the Victorian side of the market. But if I pull this camera out again, with the exception of this building that I built, some of you might recognise that warehouse because it's a very well-known builder that made that warehouse. There's another version of that warehouse kicking around somewhere here as well. All or most, or not all, but some of the builds that make up Loner Lane are also pre-builts, and you can see there's a fair number of pre-builts that are around here. However, The one thing about New Babbage, which is not the case for a lot of community cities like this in Second Life, is even though the days of prim building is mostly at an end, one fact remains true. New Babbage is still a city of builders. There is a lot of mesh builders in the city, either making mesh furniture, mesh clothing, small mesh builds, large mesh builds in my case. And yeah, it's a city of builders, which is one of the reasons why this city, from the day when Jonathan Sprocket first set up the city, to the day that Mossavino Tenk took over as the city mayor, and all the way up to now, through the many years that Tenk has ran this city, it's the main reason the city's not went down the road of roleplay enforced, because New Babbage is a city of builders, and it has been for a very long time now. You will generally see one or two people practically camped out at the resident-only sandbox, either improving builds, making new builds, or just chilling out while they're having a break from making a build. Also, there is regular events here in New Babbage as well. You've got Metal Monday, which for all you metalheads out there, D Wells runs that over in Clockhaven. You've got the book discussion that goes on every 2 weeks. You've got the Wednesday party that D Wells also hosts. You've got Foot Tapping Friday that D Wells and Ed Pierce does in turns with each other, and you've got so many other events that goes on in New Babbage as well. What I would suggest is, if you pop into this building, join that group there. What am I doing with this camera? Good lord. Seriously? There we go. You want to click on that little thing there. Click here to join the Steampunks of New Babbage. That group there will keep you apprised of any of the events that's going on within the City-State of New Babbage. Barring the crappy camera work, because I'm still not used to this 3D Navigator mouse, seriously, come on, there we go. Barring the crappy camera work, and of course the texture's not loading because I was stupid enough to use the vanilla viewer from Second Life, I hope you enjoyed this video. There's going to be more videos like this, where I basically randomly visit destination guide listed areas in Second Life and give an overview and possibly a minor review of that area as well. I am Vic Mornington of thisislandsl.com. Have a good one.